Before it was like, okay, you miss Sunday service or whatever.
Right.
You're going to go to like the guy that's like recording them in the back.
Get it on tape.
Hey, give me that.
I need my cassette tape.
Yeah. Here's my cassette.
Or CD.
Someone's sermon notes.
Yeah. When you know a guy who has the sermon notes, you ask that guy. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Stir It Up. Look at us being consistent, aren't we? High fives to everyone.
High five.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. So today we have a very, very special episode. But before we dive into it, just a reminder, you can follow us on Instagram. And don't forget about our merch collection. You'll find the link in below, but it's with our friend Sleepy Hollow & Co. And she makes some great stuff. And we've already had a bunch of friends and people get merch. So they really love it and it's awesome. But yeah, that's just a quick little reminder about those things. Stay in tune with what's going on, and we'll always be trying to share new stuff that we find. So yeah. So today kind of goes back all the way to the origins of our podcast in general. We had been talking to a friend of ours from McAllen, Texas, and we were talking about what is the next stage of our church look like in the digital world. So today he's our special guest. Yeah. Insert applause here.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah, he can do that.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome to the show. Yes, this is our first
What's going on?
Zoom introduction, so it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Innovate. Yep. So this is Daniel, all right, Ovalle.
Ovalle.
Yep, you got it. You got it.
Yeah. I mean, I know who he is, guys, but I don't say his last name very often. So, Daniel, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and then I'll confirm how awesome you are after that.
Sure, awesome. Well, first off, thank you for the opportunity to be on y'all's podcast. I really like what y'all do. And so just a little bit about me. I'm a church kid. I grew up in the McAllen church since my mom was pregnant with me. And I've grown up here my whole life. And I am called, to preach. And so I've also taken that, and God has really, I feel like, blessed me with some, skills as far as, graphic design, website building. And I've really learned how to make all of those skills useful through marketing. And I've really, really felt God use what I know to help the church. And we've seen a lot of great success working with my pastor, Pastor Roman, and the amazing team, media team there in McAllen, Texas. And so God is doing amazing things. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the future of our fellowship. And yeah, that's
awesome.
A little bit about myself.
That's so awesome. How did you first start getting into marketing and design? What was the first thing that kind of sparked it?
So I was one of those kids where I'd lock myself in the room and just build Legos all day. Really, I wouldn't.
That's why you get along with Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. There's these toys called Bionicles or whatever. That was my thing.
Yeah.
So I would. I don't know if anybody my age could relate. They're discontinued, but
Yep.
I would do that, and so I really love to build things. And my dad actually would do graphic design, and I would see him use a piece of software, Photoshop, to create flyers that people would actually use. And people would use those ideas in his mind, he'd put it on a computer, create something, and people could actually use that to lead people to church. So when I saw that, I naturally started, when I got my first computer, I started just spending that same, time that I would use building Legos, I would now just build and create using Photoshop. Probably when I was like 12 or whatever. I would just spend hours building my own wallpaper, and really I was doing it for fun, but I was really learning skills now that I look back at it. And so that's how I started with learning how to use software, graphic design. colors and all that. And then later on, fast forward, when I got my first job, I found out you could build websites that people could use. So I learned how to use design. What I used from design, I learned how to design websites. And so that was exciting. And then from there, I had these skills, but I didn't know how to really make it useful. You know, I could make a really decent looking website, but I don't know how to get people to use it. I don't know how to use the website to get people to take action, maybe whether that be a sale for a business or maybe attend a location. I didn't know how to do that. That was until I learned about marketing. It's really taking those elements, right, and learning how to make it useful to get people to take an action, a desired action that would benefit a business or an organization. And so for a long time, I stayed away from social media, not just because it was a church standard, but I had tried it and I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. Like, I thought, unless I'm successful, why would people want to hear what I have to say? So I just stayed away from it for a long time, but it kind of came full circle once I got into marketing and really learning how to get people's attention and use that to make them a follower of yours and get them to really invest in what you're doing. And really, the best way to do that is through social media. And so I kind of took what I learned, and now a big part of what I do is social media, advertising, and I've used that to help, my job. I've used that to really help the church, and it's where I've really seen a lot of my success. And so yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing all that. That's like, I'm sure it's encouraging to other people, and it's cool. Is like, you're over there, we're here, you know what I mean? And like, obviously we wish we could bring everybody here, like Pastor Warner's podcast, but but it's so cool because one thing that we were talking about was when we had heard, and at the beginning of this podcast in general, we talked about how like one of our lead pastors, he talked about how like the different standards and the goals that like we have. And one of them was make a crowd, create a crowd. And that was something that like really stuck with us. And we were like, okay, that's really cool. Like, obviously you do that if you go and like find people on the street or reach them, but how do we take that and apply it to the gifts that God has given us?
Right.
And so that's why today's episode is about creating a crowd online. So you'll notice that phrase is in the bio on our Instagram. If you looked at our mission statement, if you will, of what Stir It Up even is, or the Door Church creative media team here at Door Church, that's what it's about, right? It's creating a crowd online. So, and then what's so cool, as you'll discover through the few different things we're going to talk about today, is it's how do you take that crowd that's online and how do you bring it into the church? How do you bring it into the body of Christ and going from there? So we want to do a few episodes with Daniel in the future, more detailed, and we want your guys' help in how to kind of do that. So if there's anything that you pick up on today that you find really interesting or captivating, or something that really draws your attention, leave a comment below. Ask further questions that you think might help other people, because that's really going to help us hone in on what we're going to talk about next. Because a lot of these topics can get really in the weeds. They can get kind of like deep or like super specific based on your situation. So if there's something that's more broad that you feel like can help, but also be useful to others, let us know. That'd be super useful. So thanks again, Daniel, for being here today.
Yeah.
So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the Livestream Revolution. So people might be asking, like, what is that, right? Like, how does that even work? And the first thing that I think about is how it changed the dynamic of the church. Like, before it was like, okay, you miss Sunday service or whatever.
Right.
You're going to go to like the guy that's like recording them in the back and be like, hey, can I get
on tape?
Hey, give me that.
I need it on. I need my cassette tape.
Yeah. You need my cassette.
Or CD.
Yeah, exactly.
Pay for your cassette.
Yeah, pay for your cassette.
Someone's
get your CD.
Notes.
Yeah. When you know a guy who has the sermon notes, you ask that guy, It's stuff like that. And today it's like completely different. I have just last night, one of the girls in our church who's a nurse, she was like, I'm so grateful for Livestream because like I can, like, I'm working these 12, 14-hour shifts, and like I'm able to still tune in. I'm able to still listen. Sometimes I'm late to church, but I'm able to listen to live stream on the way there, and then I can catch that altar call. Like stuff like that's a completely different narrative than it used to be,
Or like we've even had people who say they get like healed during a live stream physically, or like filled with the Holy Spirit. So it's like so far reaching.
Yeah, God's not really limited to anything. Like we think, oh, well, man created these technologies, but God will use anything to reach anybody. Like one of the things I like to think of all this is that we know there's one way to heaven, right?
Yeah.
Which is through Jesus. But there's many ways to Jesus. And we read the Bible, the book of Acts. There's so many ways people found Jesus, right? And ways that we would never think of. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening with live stream to social media. People are being reached in ways we wouldn't have considered, but God's using it. And so it's pretty amazing to see. We've even had people not only watch us on live stream, people enjoy our worship, but I've even had people ask hey, they found out we had Bible studies. They're like, hey, are you going to live stream your Bible studies? We'd love to see. I was like, we're not there yet. I haven't thought about that, but there's a clear demand is what we're seeing.
No, that's so good. And some of those same situations I think we can all recall here as well, people's reactions to that. And I think what's cool is like it's a resource for people to use to evangelize too. Like it's like, hey, check out this sermon. Hey, check out this message. Hey, check out this thing that impacted me. It can be special and to you. And then right now I feel like all of our pastors are talking about the Holy Spirit, and it's just like this like wave and this move. And what's cool is some of these sermons I've never heard what it means so concisely and so clearly. And at the end of the day, it's the Holy Spirit is about encouragement and proclamation. And so it's about healing the inside, transforming your flesh more into, God, and, trying to be like God. But then also giving you that courage to step out.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the same thing because online everybody wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be recognized. But people can decipher the heart of what that looks like really quickly. And it's really easy to see. So that's how we kind of just wanted to open today, was just talking about how the landscape of everything is transformed, is changed. This is one thing that Daniel and I were talking about, and we call it the digital handshake, which is, okay, so someone found you, however, this is a tool, however, but the question is what does that digital interaction look like? So once they find you, right, they find Door Church McAllen, they find Door Church Tucson, however it works, they find you. What does that look like after that? Are you able to engage and connect with them? And what does that look like? So Daniel, is there anything that you, from your marketing background, that you recognize as important for the first interaction with either your client or potential customer? What does that look like there?
Yeah, so your first point of contact, whether that be social media, Google My Business, that's a huge one. However they find you, even if it's a flyer. One of the things I always try to get our team to do is think about what is the next step that you want them to do. Okay, you have their attention. Now what? What do you want them to do, right? And so I always try to give any piece of content that we create, whether it's reading a bio of your social media, whether it's the landing page of your website, what's the next step you want them to do to continue that relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because you have an opportunity, right? This is not just a piece of paper, and they probably the only thing you can do is just save it, right, to refer to that information later. Right. But the powerful thing about social media is you can have links, you have clicks, they have shares, they have comments, and really it's an opportunity just to build off of that first point of interaction.
Right.
And so probably the most important things I always say is, okay, you have somebody's attention, they've already given you permission to talk to them, take them somewhere, right? Take them to the next sermon that you have. If it's you're showing them a piece of your sermon, show them to the next one. Let them know that you have a YouTube channel. Inform them, hey, there's a YouTube channel, we have more of these pieces of content.
That's good.
Lead them to directions to your church. lead them to your app so you can stay connected and they can get notifications if you do texting. And so always have a purpose for each piece of content that you create, or any sort of interaction that you have. Give them a next step to do. And so that's what we've seen, and we've seen a lot of success from that.
No, that's so good. And like Natalie and I were talking the other day, we're like, okay, well, what does revival look like for us today? So like you hear stories, right? Like lately in the news, like we've heard a lot about the Asbury Revival, you know?
Right.
And even Pastor Warner recalls it as something that was close to his heart because he had gotten saved and he was excited hearing about the things of God, and knowing that it was happening in other places was so encouraging. And like back then you don't really have the same like methods of communication, but like that's happening again today on the same campus that it happened in 1970. And because of TikTok, because of Twitter, because of Instagram, like these things are rapidly trending, you know? Right. And so it's like, what does that look like? You know, like you're saying, is there a next step for people, you know, or is it just something that's like a trend? And how do we know that God is moving? And how do we know he's going somewhere, but how do we jump on that train too? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was your reaction to that?
I was like very excited, but also like you mentioned, kind of like there was part of me that was kind of like, this is awesome. This is great to see. Like, this is what we've been praying for. This is like straight out of like Book of Acts, the old stories, all that good stuff. But the thing is like you were saying, is where's the next step? So like,
right.
You know, hopefully like I pray that those people found connections with local churches, the ones that traveled from out of town. I hope they went back home and found like a church in their town that they can get plugged into that teaches good doctrine. Because like you were saying, like once you have the encounter, what really matters is like what you do after that, how you continue to carry on after that.
And I think that's biblical too, because I mean, that's what Jesus would always say. He's like, you know, he was like, you're forgiven. Go and sin no more. Like it was like there was always,
go tell your friends.
Go tell your friends.
Right.
Or in some cases, don't tell anybody, and they did anyway.
Or where he was like, no, you can't follow me. You need to go live your life now that you're forgiven, healed, etc. Like, I mean, like metaphorically follow him, but you know, no, it's so true.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And like looking at it from like, obviously you were in another country for like several years, and outreaching looks a lot different than it does in America.
Yes. Well,
so what's that perspective for you?
It's similar, but it's like it's different.
Yeah.
In a sense. It's similar because yes, we're going out.
Right.
And
in case you don't know, he lived in Brazil.
I lived in Brazil for about 4.5 years. Yeah.
Nice.
Missionary's kid. So yeah, like it was, I would say a lot more bare bones. Just a PA and a microphone and a guitar, and that was about it. And you just go to a marketplace and you set up on the corner and pass out flyers. And that seems to catch people's attention, especially because you have, and it was a bit difficult because you're competing if it's an open marketplace with other advertisements. In Brazil, I don't know if they do the same thing in other South American countries. You can hire cars with speakers, and they will get a guy and he'll make a recording basically doing announcements for your church, and they'll drive around the neighborhoods and stuff like that, and it'll be like Igreja Porta and stuff like a voice like that, and it'll announce like a revival with so and so, or like revival with Pastor whoever. And it'll just go around. So that's what outreach looked like for us. And then the same thing, we use WhatsApp a lot. We would advertise just basically the flyer on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is very big down there.
In Facebook, a lot of countries. Yeah.
Kind of. Instagram, yes, but I would say WhatsApp more so. Especially a lot of local communities. Everyone was on WhatsApp in that neighborhood. Everyone knew each other through that and through interacting. So
and that's so good. And I think what's crazy is in America we've seen like a development of this kind of stuff for like over years. It's developed slowly, but then I feel like the rest of the world, it's like in Sierra Leone, for instance, in Sierra Leone, West Africa, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. We built a radio station like in 2022, and it's a huge resource for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then what's crazy is like that's new, but then at the same time, because of things like Starlink, they have TikTok. So it's like
That's crazy.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like these two worlds of like,
Yeah.
like for us, radio's old news, but for them, radio's new and effective. And at the same time, they have TikTok. So like, you're now living in this world that has like every resource at its disposal.
Yeah.
To me, that's like something so interesting.
Star Trek.
Well, I think you and I were talking about this, Michael, about just how our theme this year for our 50th anniversary is celebrating and proclaiming the good news. And I was like, it just had me thinking, I'm like, so many different ways of, I mean, not only celebrating, but also proclaiming. And like, that looks different everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Like, I know I went to visit my parents in Buffalo, and like the way that they outreach there, people just respond to stuff that in Tucson, everyone would just roll their window up and keep driving.
Right.
You know, so it's just like so fascinating to think about like the different needs for proclaiming and like how key the internet and social media is for those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I
tool
think
for the job.
Right.
Yeah, like going back to the Asbury Revival, you know, when I first heard of it, me and Michael were talking about it, I had never really looked into revival. I had no idea what was going on until they preached it in my church. And so I finally had to like take some time and research, because our generation has never really seen revival. You know, we've heard about,
Exactly.
the people who started the fellowship, they talk about revival, but we've only heard of this. We've never seen it. We've never experienced this. And so when I saw it, I had to do some research and say, what's going on here? And, you know, you see all the footage, and I feel like I really got a revelation of what's going on in our generation, this whole kind of tying all this technology together and social media, WhatsApp. You know, this is the first time where we not only get to hear about revival, we get to see it, we get to hear it. And I was watching a video explaining about past revivals and how all revivals have always had a ripple effect. It's always started somewhere, and it's always just kind of expanded throughout the nation. And if you think about the capabilities of what we have now, you know, it's no wonder that this Asbury Revival has, you know, spread so fast, so quickly. And everybody's talking about it. Nobody would know about it this quick if it wasn't for social media. And it kind of just goes back, you know, God is using this to reach people, to let people see what he's able to do, and people are just being inspired and stirred. And so, I think it's very clear, you know, that this is what God is using, and this is where, you know, we always say, you know, go where people are at. If there's a parade, we're going to be at the parade, because that's where people are at. Right. And it's the same thing online. People are online, especially since COVID. People have just gravitated to online, talking on social media, and that's where people are at. And so it's just really awesome to see that we can use this to reach people for Jesus, really.
No, 100%. And I think it's remembering, it's like, for churches, it used to be, you know, having a church building was like the most valuable thing that your church could have. And I think now in a lot of ways, it's your digital real estate. It's the name that you have for yourself online. One of the things I've written down here was, how do you craft your bio? How do you craft your image of your church? You know, just in general, to draw people in. Like, you know, what are those things that are captivating? And that kind of leads into the last section we want to talk about, was digital follow-up. So in our church, in like our collection of churches, a common phrase that we hear all the time is follow-up. And what that's usually referring to is, it's, you know, if somebody gets saved, if somebody meets Jesus, if you know, witnesses someone somewhere, is keeping up with them. You know, it's like, how's their walk with Jesus going? And sometimes for them, that's a make or break in their walk with God. I've heard so many stories of like, I'm so grateful for, you know, Amy, because when Amy witnessed to me, she kept following up on me, and she kept talking to me, and she took me out to coffee, and she took me to lunch. And like, you see how impactful that is in somebody's life. And so it's so cool, I think, about social media in our churches and our YouTube channels and everything like that, is that you're able to go with people once they make that decision, like you're saying. So we're asking them to do something, but then there has to be something there for them to do. And so it's, how are you maintaining that relationship, and how are you helping them further their relationship with God in whatever way necessary? And so a lot of that can turn into I mean, and this is like a general overview of it, right? But it's consistency, right?
Right.
Are we regularly doing this? Is there something there for them to see? Is somebody going to go to your page and see that the last thing you posted is like
from a year,
8
2
months
years
ago?
ago.
Yeah. Like that doesn't feel relevant anymore.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think that's why TikTok and Instagram and stuff, they like remove dates on like a lot of the reels and stuff.
Yeah.
Because they don't want things to feel irrelevant. Because people, if something looks, even to me, like when I'm on Twitter and like there's something that's like a day and a half old, I'm like, oh, there's probably something new. You know what I mean? And so it's like,
Yeah.
that's how we think. You know, I don't know. What would you say about that, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, our marketing and thinking in this way has really taught me to consider the audience. And so our audience nowadays, even us, no matter what age you are, our attention has shortened so quickly. So,
Yeah.
Going back to the date and going back to how things are and are they consistent, you're making quick judgments. Is this worth my time, right? And so if it's outdated, you're going to scroll right past it. And so people are always thinking as they're scrolling or browsing, what's in it for me, right? And
That's good.
If you can immediately answer like, hey, I know you're struggling with depression, and somebody who is struggling with depression, you let them know, hey, this is how I can help you. And then you show them a scripture, you show them a sermon that your pastor has preached, and you let that minister to them. Say, hey, you give them an opportunity, right, to continue that relationship with you. Because ultimately, everything we try to do is ultimately the goal is for them to visit our church in person and meet people in person. Because nothing's going to replace that. Nothing is going to replace that one-on-one.
Yeah, exactly.
And really, what you want is your social media to really encourage them. If you can build a relationship online as much as possible to where the only obvious next step is for them just to visit your church because they just want more. They want more of that interaction. They want more of Jesus. They want more of your pastor's sermons. Then the obvious step would be for them to visit our church. And that's what we've seen.
Right.
We've seen people watch our live streams for years, and then they finally come, and when we talk to them, they know the church from the live stream, right? Like, oh, I know this person, he plays guitar, he's the worship leader, he's this pastor, so and so. They know the church because they've been watching, and they finally decide to come, and they get to meet everybody in person, and we get to pray with them, and they continue the relationship with God, and so, yeah.
That's so good, stimulating that. And I think
Right.
one thing that we can all get kind of lost in, maybe you guys can comment or, whatever you think about this as well, but we're so, and I think this is the church world, it's not just like our collection of churches or, you might even find this in your own church, wherever you are, is that we're so event focused.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're obsessed
Yeah.
Yeah.
with events. And in a way, rightly so, right? In a lot of ways. Because, I mean, we are armies of volunteers. We're like thousands of people around the world are an army of volunteers. And so when can volunteers help? When they're not working, right? And so that usually makes things occur around in an event cycle. Mm-hmm. And so I think social media is like that secret dagger to go like right inside of that like regular flow. Yeah, in that maintenance, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, you think about sometimes how you feel, like, church is Wednesday and you're excited for that, or church is next Sunday and you're excited for that. But like, there's a reason we have a relationship with God that's like beyond church, right? But it's sometimes you need that encouragement. Sometimes you need that boost. Sometimes you need that thing that excels you forward. And so that's why one of the reasons we love posting on like Mondays or Tuesdays, or like things that follow up maybe something that happened on Sunday, because it's like, here's a reminder of what God did for you last week, because the devil's trying to tell you the opposite. You know? And how can that, like you said, further and grip those relationships? Or if it's something that was like brought up or announced, following it up with, something is so helpful. Like what's your like experience in creating content like that over the past like year and a half?
Well, honestly, that was the whole reason I got involved with social media, was because I was looking at, especially during the pandemic, I was seeing like a lot of people from my church posting content from other churches that was just like useful, like encouragement, like just godly biblical encouragement, Jesus stuff. like set your mind on Jesus. That's the kind of content it was. And I kind of like looked at our page and I was like, man, I wish that like maybe we had more like that, you know, like maybe people from our church could be sharing our stuff,
right?
You know, like we could give them stuff from our pastors to share with others. And like that was how I originally even got involved. I had no time, but I took it to Michael and I was like, someday I want to do this, you know? Yeah. And so like now I still am not able to as much as I want, but yeah.
Yeah, the reality is people are consuming content. Either they're going to watch a TV show, they're going to scroll through TikTok, or you can give them an option to feed themselves the Word of God or something that's going to actually feed them spiritually. And so, yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity. And kind of going back to the events, what we try to do is, we have our certain events, but we always want to keep ourselves on the top of mind because events are really a huge opportunity for people to finally come to your church, right?
Totally.
Maybe it's less likely they'll come to a church service, but if you've been establishing a relationship and they love you guys online, and then you come to a cool, fun event for the family, that is a huge opportunity for them to come, get in their car, drive to your event. Right. And really they're just for fun, but you know, it's an opportunity to meet the people, meet the church, and they can become church members. And so,
that's so good. No, that's awesome, and that's huge. And one of the most powerful things I think I heard was that it's like content should add value, not just be an advertisement. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so easy to get consumed in. Like one of the things. Daniel and I always talk about Apple because we're Apple geeks, but one of the things that I think they love is Apple doesn't have social media. And it's like super bizarre. Like for themselves, like where they're posting like the new iPhone is out today. They have like a YouTube channel and stuff. But what they did is when they finally got an Instagram, the only thing that's on their Instagram is curated photos that people have taken on the iPhone. Huh. Which is crazy, you know. It's like it's obviously you have to like they're giants, right? Like they can do that, but it's just it's like the biggest ad you could ever make ever. Yeah. It's like look at what you can make with our product and have FOMO about it. Like, and it's like a really cool, beautiful way to give value. Like I follow that page because I love the beautiful things that they post. You know what I mean? And so. It's giving value to me, and it actually even makes me feel like my purchase is more worth it. And so it's like if you think about, not that church is based like monetarily or that your benefit from it is monetarily based, but it's being a part of something, hearing the Word of God, and then getting like it back in your system over and over again through that social media platform or through that reminder.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, that's kind of that's a whole other conversation in building a community. You can build a whole community on using your social media, which that's one of our goals. Is right now we're just trying to build relationships, more one-on-one. But eventually you could definitely build a community. And but meanwhile, kind of going back to what Michael's saying, the whole like sharing pictures of the iPhone, what Apple does. Really, what they're trying to do is they're trying to give you a vision of what your life. For non-Apple users, what your life looks like with an iPhone. You can have these pictures, right? And so for a church here's what your life can look like in the church. And really, what people want more, especially now, is people just want community. People just want people. And so one of the things we try to really show on our social media is people smiling, the church fellowshipping, showing them that there's friendship. And because nowadays, people are just stuck online. They're just in their job or school, just the world is telling them you have to have success. And so they're just in their own little mind track, right? Grind is what you hear on YouTube, right?
Yep.
But, the church is really a huge opportunity for community, for families, for friendship, for fun, for activities. And for parents, one thing we see is parents want something for their kids. They want their kids to be more social. They want their kids to be more outgoing. Yeah. And one of the things we also like to share is how our kids are able to have ministry. They're able to express themselves and give back really to other people in their communities. And so, it's really, really good to show that and take advantage of that.
No, you took what I said and then you like slammed it to home. That's so perfect.
Yeah. It's also like the best, maybe this is just me, but like there's so much negativity about I mean, in particular a fellowship, but like just churches in general. And so to just like ignore all that, like you don't even have to address the negativity, but you just have to like let your church shine through and be, what is my church? My church is like all of the, like we posted a reel of just like all of our Bible study leaders smiling.
Yeah.
And that one has had like the best share rate, I think, of like anything we've ever, it's just like, let your church shine, let Jesus shine. And like, you don't have to address the negativity necessarily.
No, exactly. Like it's like let the photos, let your Instagram, let your social media be a representation of what and who your church is.
Right.
To me, I'm like, I want my social media to feel like what I feel like about my church. I want it to be representation of everything that my church is, not just a list of, like we said, not just a list of events, not just like a bunch of flyers posted there. It's like, how does somebody look at it, like you said, and say, this is what my life would look like there.
I could see
and
myself
it's real and
there.
authentic.
Yeah,
I could see myself
absolutely.
being heard. I could see myself fitting in.
Yeah.
I could see myself growing.
I can see myself in that. That person might look like me. That person, you know what I mean? Like that's where I'm at in life. And wow, that's really cool. And I think there's beauty in that, and it's like so much of the world is fake. So much of the world isn't real. So much of these campaigns that are trying to make you feel like your life's going to be better with their product are really just out to make money. But like the gift we're offering is free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And much needed. Like we know it's going to benefit their spirit, and it's going to benefit eternity for them.
Yeah.
It's not just, and so one of the things, one of the, I guess the filters is, okay, what do I post on my social media, right? Don't tell them what you do, show them what you do, right? Show them, don't tell them. I'm sure you've heard that.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so whenever I try to think of content, just show them what we do. Just let them be the fly on the wall. Let them be that person where they're standing in the corner and they get to see what we do. And so whenever we're capturing video or photos, we're just going to show you what we do and let them decide whether they want to be a part of our church. And really, that's the way to do it. It always works. I mean, that doesn't always work, but it's a very high success rate.
Yeah.
As opposed to just posting addresses, phone numbers, and times, right? Like, it doesn't really speak to you, right? There's a lot of effort to read that. Like, I have to stop and read all this. I don't even know if it's for me. Whereas something that immediately captures your attention, you see as somebody smiling, somebody having fun.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. And like all of this to me is always like so encouraging because it's like, keep going. And wherever you're at in your church and whatever you're doing, keep going. It might not look like somebody else's, and that's okay. You never have to have the same thing as someone else. And some of the things that I kind of thought about for future episodes or future things, that we could talk about related to this is, what's the best way to start? How can I choose one of these things to focus on? Which one's the most important for me? Do you already have a following online? And what does that mean for advertising to be effective? Or maybe you don't. And how can you turn an ad campaign into a community like he's talking about?
Yeah, I guess to answer one of those questions, for anybody looking to get started, capture what happens in your church. If you have an iPhone, going back to iPhone, tying it together again, iPhone is great. Your phone is great to capture pictures, capture video. And that's good enough. And really, in the psychology of viewers, it seems more authentic rather than a highly produced video. When you have someone when you're just sharing footage of your phone, it looks more authentic. It looks like your friends just showed you, like, hey, this is what I saw in this event. And when you share that on your social media, it seems a little bit more authentic. And so there's no disadvantage if you don't need to have a whole media team. Just if you're a pastor or a pioneer pastor, just capture everything. Show them what you do.
Yeah,
share
that's
your baptisms, your worship, and just be a documenter really of your church and put it out there. And that is the easiest and best way to start, really. And always in your content, again, I always lead them somewhere, right? Show them the address of your church. Hey, visit our church. You've earned the right. If they've stopped and seen your piece of content, you've earned the right to tell them more details, right? Now
Right.
you've earned the right to tell them about your phone number and your address and your service times or your event times. And that's not to say, like, we still do like event flyer based
Sure.
posts, but
Yeah,
that
we
is
do too.
that's not the main driver, because we
Right.
know that's not what's going to really capture people's attention. But yeah, if you want to get started, now's the best time to start. And just be a documenter of your church. Document everything. Use your phone and post it on social media. And the more you do it, the better you'll get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's so good. And just to kind of like tie it all together is like today we talked about the revolution of live stream. So like how everything has kind of, the game has changed.
Yeah.
The game has changed. The digital handshake. What does it look like when you connect with people for the first time? Like Daniel's talking about, are you giving them something of value? Are you establishing a connection and relationship that even allows you to start asking them for something? Then you have the digital follow-up. It's after they've made a decision, after they've made a choice, after they've, maybe met Christ or visited, how can they connect with you beyond this? What does that look like? And what resources are you allocating personally in your time or with your iPhone to connect with them further and maintain that relationship?
Yeah.
And so if there's anything else that you have more questions about related to this, just let us know in the comments. If there's anything that stands out to you. Do you have questions about connecting with young people? Do you have questions about how to present these tools to leadership? Do you understand maybe like the dynamic cost of advertising and how that impacts? It's like, okay, well, maybe we only have this certain amount. What do we use it for? Any of those questions, just ask them below. And then if there's one that's like really hot or something that's amping up, we can definitely craft that into something that we talk about soon. But thank you so much, Daniel, for being with us today.
Yeah, man, thank you.
It was so exciting. I was so glad we got to do this finally.
Yeah, great conversation.
Yeah, it was so fun. And also too, we'll put Daniel's socials below. He posts a lot of really great business resources and marketing concepts and ideas. So he's not just posting in obscurity. He's there and he makes some great content. But we'll put his handle right there for you and have it in the description down below. But thanks so much, Daniel.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. So we'll see you next time on Stir It Up.
Stir it up.
Oh, he's not going to do it this time.
up.
Is he? I don't know.
Stir it up.
He's
Oh.
tempted. Yay, there we go. Josh in the back.
Stir it up.
All right, see you guys next time.